Excited to have you here, guys. Welcome to Tuesday. Today we're going to be talking about reclaiming yourself. It's a little series I'm going to be starting here this week. Today, the focus is going to be on your innocence. So if you're new to me, I'm Marshall Burtcher, and I help codependents heal themselves, come to know and discover who they are, and create happy relationships in their lives. I've been at this for over 12 and a half years. I'm a recovered codependent myself, so I've been down the road. I know the territory. I'm excited to be able to share some of my wisdom with you guys. Now, I'm going to share this out to the community. If you're not familiar with what the community is your safe haven here on the internet, on Facebook, where you can be seen and understood. You can get guidance, tools, get support in your journey. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. The name of the community is Thriving Beyond Codependency. So be sure to join us there. And let me get that shared out, actually. So let me know how you're doing in the comments. What's up in your world? How things have been going for you? Because we've been having some fun lately in the world, haven't we? Lots of adventure. And we're going to click a button here. There we go. Yay! Hi Rita, I'm well. As you can see, I'm not using a green screen today. I've got my office largely set up the way I want it to be, and yeah, now we get to enjoy that. My daughter's Pickle Rick. I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty and Pickle Rick. She drew that for me a couple of years ago. It's one of my favorite art pieces. I'm going to get it framed and I'm going to put it up there, where they're not, I mean, that picture's old. We're going to be getting some new family pictures, but yeah. Fun times there. Okay. Let's have some fun here. Innocence. So, I'm doing my own work, right? I've been doing some of my own trauma work lately, specifically around a specific kind of abuse that I endured it was a dominant aspect of the abuse I endured as a child, and that is being accused of doing harmful things and being a harmful person. Thank you, Rita. And you probably, if you followed me for a while, or if you've been a student or a client, you've heard me talk about this, because it's something that happens to us a lot. What happens with abusive people is they think the worst about you. That's called ill intent or negative intent. People that tend to be empathic or codependent or even functionally realistic tend to lean towards the experience of giving people what's called generosity or positive warm regard. The idea here is that we assume a positive intent behind the action, that it was simply a mistake. It's not something that was designed to hurt us. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't intentional. But abusive people, people with toxic behaviors, people that exhibit serious, I'd say personality disorders, things like of that nature, tend to go towards what's called negative regard or ill intent. And this is where they accuse you of doing things you didn't do. Sometimes, like in my childhood, my preference for being introverted, for being on my own, doing things myself, was seen as a problem, as something that had to be fixed. There was an ill intent behind my action here. There's something wrong with me. An ill intent was also, if I made mistakes, it's something that I calculated out. It was something that was very deliberate. One of the first memories I have of this is when I was 4 years old, and I was accused of harming my sister when we weren't doing anything that was harmful. But because they didn't understand the context, they didn't want to take the time to really comprehend what was going on. That was what was going on. That happened with an uncle. He loved to imbue ill intent on people's behaviors that entitled him to abuse them physically. So ill intent is a act of violence against the other person, right? And what it does is it shapes us to think that we are bad, that we are wrong, that we are harmful, that there's something terrible about us, something wrong, very wrong with us. When in reality, what's going on is other people are imbuing it. They're injecting this intention into the behavior of this person, usually a child or young adult that's just trying to figure out their lives. See, in abusive situations, there's often also neglect. Neglect in the form of how do you live life? How do you function as a healthy human being? How do you communicate? How boundaries work? How to deal with real life situations that show up. We weren't given those skills. We weren't given those insights. We were expected to be perfect, so we didn't, rattle the cages or dysregulate the other person. Instead, we were made responsible for how they feel, and then when we do something that upsets them, they think it's deliberate, and so there's the ill intent. It's very, very common with narcissistic brains because they think they're a victim to the world. They think the world's out to get them. They're so important, the world's conniving and conjuring things and there's a word, conspiring against them. It's just utter grandiosity. The world doesn't give a shit. I mean, honestly, come on. But they imbue it with ill intent, and then they abuse us for it, and that confuses us because of our empathic nature, our willingness to take accountability, our willingness to see that possibly maybe we did do something that was wrong or hurtful. We're willing to consider it, and this gives them undue influence in our world. And especially if we're a child, we don't know the difference. We don't have any bearings. We don't understand our own autonomy. We don't understand what is healthy and not healthy. Instead, we are subject to them as an authority, and we don't really have the power to make a choice there. This violates our innocence. Okay? In abuse, we are innocent. Period. We didn't cause it. We didn't earn it. In our ignorance, we're innocent until we become aware of what we need to do differently. That's where accountability and compassion come in. This is where empathy comes alive, and this is where we can build understanding and boundaries and agreements and things like that allow relationships to function in healthy, consensual ways. But for us to heal, we need to access our innocence, especially in the places where we were violated. Okay, like I've been working on this element, this trauma in my world for a while. It's a very complex one. It has a lot of layers and a lot of dimension to it. And I keep bringing myself back to innocence. I keep finding that in my journey with these parts of myself that have experienced these traumas, that they're innocent. And when they're able to accept and touch that, and they're able to feel it, a lot of the tension goes away. A lot of the pain evaporates. Because now we're getting back to truth. We're getting back to reality that I didn't earn the behavior I received, the accusations I received. I am not that person. That is something dysfunctional in them. That is something they need to work out in their world. I am no longer responsible for regulating that. I get to embrace my innocence and my truth in that. This is the power of understanding, or this is the result of understanding our innocence, is it reveals to us a greater truth, and it frees us from this undue accountability for something that wasn't real. So I got to be willing to give ourselves permission to be innocent, to acknowledge our innocence, to lean into it and feel it. That gives us a chance to reconnect back with our true self, back with the aspect of who we are that is healing, that is coming forward with their pain. See, innocence allows us to view our pain from the angle, from a more objective angle of going, wow, we were violated, of course we have pain. Rather than the shame point of view, which says, I deserve this, I did something to earn it, I'm a shameful person, I'm a burden, something like that. Innocence restores to us our wholeness. It restores to us our awareness that we are not accountable for the things that they did to us. They are accountable for the things they did to us. This gives us our power back. This helps us understand our own sovereignty and get rooted back in what matters to us, which is our well-being, our feelings about how we were treated, these kinds of things. So today, take a moment and give yourself permission to explore the innocence that exists in the experiences you've been through, even in your mistakes, even in the things that hurt, even in the things that you've been learning, even if it wasn't even an abusive relationship. Maybe you're just finding out things in a current healthier relationship and you're just like, wow, I'm innocent in that. I don't have to condemn myself. I don't have to judge myself on it. I don't have to make myself wrong for it. We're just discovering things together. And you can imbue that into people whom you feel safe with as well. Give them that positive regard to go, wow, they made a mistake. Based on their patterns of behavior, this isn't going to be a malicious intent. This is just a mistake. This tends to lower the threat level that we experience in relationships, friendships, and things like that. Notice I qualify it though, because we have to be careful about the fantasy that everybody's good intentioned. Not everybody is. There's a lot of manipulative people out there. What we want to do is lean towards the experience of, based on their patterns of behavior and who I know them to be, what can I assume about their intention behind this behavior that I feel either confused or hurt by. This allows us to allow healthy, positive, warm regard for that individual, or it allows us to access reality and go, maybe there's something else going on here, because in the past they've been manipulative and cruel. Maybe I need to exit this relationship, right? Things like that. It gives us some dimension or nuance to understanding other people and their intention, or assuming their intention behind their actions. Now, we always want to confirm it, but we can confirm that by how they respond to accountability. Because if someone coming from positive warm regard or positive intent is going to take accountability and be like, yeah, I can see that. I can see where you're coming from. They may not necessarily agree with your feedback. They don't really have to, but they will approach it with empathy. They'll approach it with a willingness to discuss and understand it. They're not going to put you down. They're not going to attack you for it. They're not going to make you feel bad or wrong for it. They will just establish some clarity there. Because oftentimes we need to be very mindful about context around people's behaviors and what's going on there. Now, if we're in an intimate relationship, we're in a one-on-one, and they did something to us that hurt us, we definitely need to confront that. And then the appropriate response on the other party's part is to empathize with that impact and discuss better ways in which to connect with you so that you guys can build safety and intimacy that way. Okay? So definitely there's nuance, and it's really about context and the situation that's going on. But ultimately, we need to give ourselves this positive regard too. Rather than condemning ourselves because we think we're not innocent, but that we're guilty of some evil thing, we need to regard ourselves with innocence. It's like, yeah, I'm learning. I mean, it doesn't bypass accountability. I'm accountable for what I did and accountable for the impact I had. But I don't have to condemn myself. I don't have to judge myself for it. I don't have to harm myself. Instead, I can just breathe and show up and be me. Right? I don't have to be anything else but me in an honest and integrity way to what I value, what matters to me. One of those things is integrity. So that's my bit on innocence for today. We're intrinsically innocent in all abuse. You can free yourself from the internalization, the responsibility for the abuse. And you can give that back to whom abused you, because they're ultimately responsible for that, because they're the ones who did the behavior, they did the action. That's on them, period. Let them receive their consequences, guys. Let them inherit the impact of their behavior. That's a loving thing to do. It's respect of boundary there. It's important that people receive consequence for their choices, because that's how they grow. It's what may even wake them up from their own sleep state to their own behavior and to their impact on others. Certainly what woke me up out of my state. So let's embrace that boundary and allow people to do what they'll do, so that we can discover who they are, so that we can understand how they fit what we want in our reality and in our relationships. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being the badasses you be. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping in every dimension of your world. That's what's so cool about this, is you deserve to be known, loved, and kept in everything that matters and is valuable to you. So lean into that, trust that, explore that. There you go, guys. That's today's training. Appreciate you. Be safe out there, and I will see you guys in our next video. All right? Bye-bye.